Well, Professor, now I'm going to present a small presentation and I'm going to record myself as part of the final exam. And I'm going to be explaining casting. I decided to explain this because this was completely new for me. I didn't know anything about casting before your class. And I think that's a pretty good topic. It was pretty interesting for me. And well, I hope you can enjoy this presentation. I'm going to make it I'm going to keep it simple, yet I'm going to try to explain everything clearly. I'm going to do it this way due to the time that it's going to take us to solve the exam and for you, of course, for you. So now, okay, let's begin. My presentation, okay. Now we're going to study three different physical phenomena that are involved, of course, in casting. The first one is fluidity, since we are pouring molten material or a liquid into a mold. Heat transfer, this is due to the interference that can have between the mold and the molten material and of course the environment. And of course, finally, solidification. This is like the most important part because you are working with something that's molten or that it's a fluid, and you're trying to get a final part or a final component that it's actually a solid. Okay, but to begin with, what is casting? Well, I want to define it with a simple phrase, which is pouring molten material into a mold in order for it to reshape and solidify. We know that liquids are the stage of matter that can adopt any figure that you want. And of course, you have to pour it first in a mold, for example, with water, right? It can reshape its body to the volume of the glass of water. This is going to be the same. You're going to have a molten material, of course, in a liquid state, and you're going to pour it into a mold in order to have to reshape or redesign its figure, its body. In order for you to, once it's solid, you have a component. It can be, for example, engines. It can be small parts like, for example, sprockets, gears, and a lot more. So well, this is basically what casting is. And we're going to begin with the physical phenomenon. Now, the first one is fluidity. Basically, fluidity is the capacity for a fluid to deform at a given rate. As I was saying, for example, with water, it can deform pretty easily, so you have a very good fluidity. But for example, with lava, that it's a molten rock, molten magma, as you know, lava is extremely hot. It's dangerous for anyone to touch it. Yet it's, as I said, it's molten rock, so it's more, it has more viscosity than fluidity. And in this case, for any kind of casting, what we want is a fluid that can flow freely into cavities in order for it to first don't get any harm into the mold, don't get any interferences, and of course do not affect the entire process. And what do we call this? Well, there's a big difference between flows, and what we are looking to achieve in casting is a laminar flow instead of a turbulent flow. A laminar flow is when a material or molten material basically flow through different channels. It doesn't matter how big or how small they are. They always have the same flow or the same ratio. And in turbulent flow, the interferences between the friction, for example, the walls or the cavities of the mold, either it's a sand or, for example, a permanent mold or a ceramic, make the flow to get a little bit turbulent and start forming a lot of secondary paths. Like, for example, with magma, as we can see, it has a lot of secondary paths of the fluid itself. And as we can see in this image, well, we have the laminar flow, that's what we want, and the turbulent flow, that's what we don't want. The second phenomena is heat transfer. Basically, what we're trying to study here is how much energy can be transferred between the molten material and the mold and the environment, and how this is going to affect the solidification process. To begin with, we have samples of materials. We need to, of course, heat it up to the melting point, the fusion temperature, of course, in order for it to be molten material, of course. And once you have it, of course, there's plenty of heat transfer between your source and the material itself. And once you pour it inside your cavities, your mold, for example, this example of sand casting, it's pouring the material inside the sand cast, the die, of course, and the heat transfer affects the walls and of the material, of course, the sand, the composition. It starts to create some small crystals. The microstructures gets crystallized in both the molten material and the mold. In this case, for example, the sand, it's pretty easily for sand to get crystallized, and all of this is due to the heat transfer that occurs between the microstructures of both materials. There's something really, really important and really, really relevant, that it's the area volume ratio. And of course, it's something that we will never forget. The more surface or the more area you have in touch with the air, the quickly or the most rapid or most easily way you have to cool down and to solidify a material or a part, a casting. In this example, for example, I want to show you how does the volume and the surface can be related. The more area in comparison with volume can give you a quicker solidification time, and the more volume compared to the surface, of course, can give you lower times, and this can, of course, affect the inner interaction of the material. It's very important to consider the solidification times, because you have some specific time to pour the material inside the mold, and if the solidification time is quicker than the pouring time, you're going to have a lot of trouble, and your casting is not going to work at all. Otherwise, if you have a longer solidification time than the actual pouring time, you can actually achieve a good casting. But you need to consider that sometimes some parts get to solidify first than others, and this can make some defects, and that's something that we're going to talk about in our next slides. The third physical phenomenon is, of course, as I have been saying, solidification. And with these two images, we can see that there are some parts in some materials that take longer to cool down than others. And what happens when this occurs into a casting? Well, if you have some areas or some parts of your mold that are very far away from the source of material or the pouring basin, well, these parts are going to start to solidify first, because they are going to start to cool down first. And as we all know, once a material starts losing energy in the form of heat, and well, the atoms starts to rearrange themselves into positions that they can solidify the entire structure. The microstructures start to position themselves into places that they can solidify, and they can be there like for the rest of their lives. And this can affect the way that the other parts are solidifying, because either the ones that are already or almost solid start to pull some material that it's still molten, that it's still liquid, sorry, from other parts, from the source of material or the pouring basin. And this can affect, of course, the entire processes of the casting. Or they can start to tear apart, and they can start generating some defects, like, for example, the holes of or cracks inside the castings that actually represents a division of material or splitting material that couldn't reach those parts, or that actually reached the part but didn't solidify at the same time. And of course, well, finally, as I already said, liquid and solid act in different ways, and this has to do with the atomic energy. Since liquid has much more energy on its atoms, and it starts to, once it starts to exerting this energy and it starts the atoms to rearrange into microstructures that can be solid, the volume, of course, starts to change. And there's something about the solidification parts that I've been kind of saying, that it's the shrinkage. In the top image, we can see, for example, a gas with its atoms. They can move as free as they want, and they can be as separate as they want. The mass will be the same because the amount of atoms, it's remaining the same unless they are released into, let's say, the atmosphere or something like that. And this exact same amount of atoms and this exact same amount of mass, once it's transformed to a liquid, is going to reduce its volume in order for it to come together. Again, but this will give the freedom for them to move, not as freely as they was moving into the gas station, into the gas state, sorry, but they will still be free to move around wherever the mold or the way, the place that you are actually keeping this liquid. And once this liquid comes and transforms to the solid state, is going to again reduce its volume due to the release of energy. The atoms will be rearranging themselves into the solid state, and they won't be moving as much as they were moving before. So this exact same thing happens in casting. As we can see in the image below, there is this part in which there is a casting that was poured into a mold, and 5 seconds after that, it's still having the same shape of the mold. Once 1 minute passes, the entire parts that were having more surface than volume, for example, with the corners, starts to solidify, so they start to shrink after 2 minutes passed. This exact same phenomenon occurs, for example, with the top part, that it's like this tiny bit of material. It reduces its shrinkage completely to the other final product, let's say, up to this part. And after a while happens, 6 minutes, let's say, the entire thing that was the liquid with the form of 3-level cylinder comes to a small little egg, for example. So this is another phenomenon that needs to be considered in casting, because the more that material you have in, and the more heat transfer that you have, and now that you know the amount of tolerances that you may have, you need to consider that the actual material has a shrinker percentage, and if you don't consider that into your design, it can be very disappointing for you seeing the final result into a smaller scale. And well, that's pretty much everything related to casting. There are a lot of phenomena occurring here. Fluidity, because if the sand, for example, has a lot of friction with your molten material, it can either destroy the mold or can create turbulent flows. And for example, with the lava, you can have a casting looking like this, and that's something that you don't want. Heat transfer, because you need to know exactly how much energy can the sand, or in case that it's sand casting, the mold can absorb in order for it to not deform or to lose its structural integrity. Of course, the volume area ratio, that you must know how much surface you have in contact with the air or the atmosphere in order for you to know which parts are going to solidify first, which parts are going to shrink first, and in that way you can actually correct some mistakes or defects on your casting. Again, solidification, as I was saying, solidification times and how far away are some parts from the source or not can help you to identify the parts that are actually still warm enough to be liquid, and the parts that are not warm enough to be liquid and that are actually getting to the stage of solid. And you can actually help the casting itself with adding more material. And well, once again, the shrinkage, you need to consider this part, because your final product will not be the same size as your mold, and the tolerances can actually change with the. Now that we already understood in a manner the way that casting and the physical phenomenon, sorry, that occur and that take place during this process, the stages of the casting manufacturing are, to begin with, you need to design your mold. And by designing your mold, I mean what material you're going to pour inside the mold, what materials are compatible with the amount of heat transfer that you're going to have. If, for example, it's sand, if, for example, it's a ceramic, if you're using some kind of permanent mold, and if you're, for example, let's say sand, which composition is going to have? Is it going to have some additives or not? If it's going to be a ceramic, what's the limit of heat transfer that you can have before it cracks or it breaks? You know, details like that. The second stage is afterwards you consider the material. You need to consider the dimensions. As I said, there's this percentage of risk of shrinkage that can affect your tolerances, and you have to consider the tolerance of the entire casting in order for you to, once it's in the stage of solidification and it's cooling down, and you take it, of course, out of your mold, it shrink a little bit more, and once it's completely done, your dimensions are actually the ones that you wanted and not a reduced dimension. The third stage is create both like the mold and have the available material, right? Well, have the material available, sorry. Melt your material. You're going to pour it, of course, afterwards the calculations, as I said, the pouring time and the solidification time. You need to pour the material inside, knowing that it's not going to solidify midway the channels, the chambers, cavities, etc. Identify the places that you may know or that you already are sure and you already know that are going to solidify first. These parts need to be considered during the design of the mold. Pour more material inside the parts that you know that are going to shrink in order for you to not have these defects. And afterwards, well, you just need to wait until your casting is done. After the cooling part, you take out the mold, take out the casting out of the mold, and just wait until it's completely done, solidified, and cooled down. And well, that will be pretty much it about casting. It's, as I said, it's try to keep it as simple as possible. Yet I think that it's very understandable for anyone, especially if there's someone that doesn't really know anything related to manufacturing or manufacturing technologies. Thank you.